Fight Magazine's Evan Herzog. This is Albert Rosales of Grinders Fitness and MMA up in Northland, Colorado. This is our second segment of our third episode, and we got a big fight coming up. Middleweight interim title fight between Luke Rockhold and Yoel Romero. It was originally slated for the undisputed belt, but Whittaker has ran into some serious health issues. They were kind of quiet about it at first, but now we understand that he had a staph infection that wasn't treated correctly. It went into his stomach, and they're being pretty hush-hush on the whole situation, which kind of worries me. Now the UFC hasn't came out and said anything, but as far as what they expect, they haven't stripped him or anything, so hopefully he gets better. But for the time being, we're seeing yet another interim belt thrown in there. The middleweight division was already crazy and weird to begin with. Now it's going to get a little bit weirder. This was a matchup, though, that I think was inevitable. It was going to happen at some point or another. Luke Rockhold, Yoel Romero, styles make fights, and I think this one is going to be a very interesting fight.
Yeah. As far as Whittaker's concerned, I really feel like he's kind of earned the right to, hang on to that title just a little bit more while he recovers from the staph infection. Man, the Romero-Rockhold fight is something I've been wanting for a while. Like, I think that is an excellent matchup. I think it's going to be a very good fight. And let's be honest, so even if it's an interim title here, this whole division is a mess because of one person. Michael freaking Bisping.
The count.
He ducked every serious contender there ever was. He wanted no piece of Jacare. He wanted no piece of Romero. He wanted no piece of any of these guys. Give him credit for beating Rockhold. I don't like to call anything lucky, because if you're a fighter in there and you throw a punch,
right,
you mean to land that punch. Okay, so I don't want to say it was lucky to beat Rockhold, but he has genuinely ducked everybody. Now that he's out of the way, I feel like the division's going to kind of sort itself out. But man, I'm really up and down on this Romero-Rockhold fight. One day I've got Romero winning it. The next day I'm like, I don't know. I think Rockhold's too well-rounded. So who knows what happens in that fight? But I'm really excited about that fight. It's going to be a great one.
I'm super excited about it too, and like I said, I think it was inevitable.
Yeah.
Whether it happened as a number one contenders match or if Luke, I will say in defense of Mike Bisping, I like Bisping, and we'll kind of disagree on this one in the fact that I think you got to blame Luke in this. Mike Bisping came off of a movie set in Canada, left a movie set, fought Luke Rockhold on 10 days' notice. Luke had a win in Australia over Bisping a few years ago, got that single-arm guillotine from the top. It was beautiful. I think he overlooked him. I think he started the screw-up of this whole division by kind of, and that's how Luke fights, though, too. He kind of has his hands down, and, he has that loose kind of stand-up taekwondo karate style. But if he doesn't lose to a 10-day fight camp Mike Bisping, then we're not all the way down here. But I will agree with you that Mike did duck every serious contender. I mean, I personally think he lost to Dan Henderson. I thought Dan Henderson won that fight.
Everybody thought he lost that fight.
Except
the judges.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's a fun matchup. I'm like you. I keep going back and forth. I don't know what to think. There's a lot of interesting aspects.
And even going back, honestly, I feel like Michael Bisping lost to Anderson Silva. The one thing I do disagree with you on is I don't blame Luke Rockhold, and here's why. With 4-ounce gloves, anybody can get knocked out. Do I think he took him a little bit light? Yeah, you might be right. He might have taken a little bit light, and who can't? You've already beat the guy once before.
Do you think he's coming on?
And now he's coming off 10 days notice, right. So maybe he did. But honestly, that could have been anybody in there. And if if the punch lands the right way, you're going to turn the lights out. So but as far as Bisping goes, he's had what he calls super fights, but really what it is, it's he's been fighting people who've been past their prime. Dan Henderson, Anderson Silva, all these guys, even GSP. He lost the freaking GSP, for God's sake. GSP
4-year layoff.
Intentionally put on all this muscle and all this weight and made himself sick. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? He jacked his body up, and he still went out there and beat Michael Bisping. Okay, and this is a 170er beating up a 185er that hasn't, and GSP hadn't fought in years. So to me, that tells me, what do you think Jacare would have done to him? And I keep mentioning Jacare because I think he's the best in the division. But, despite his loss to Romero or whatever, I still feel like he's a serious threat. The only thing that concerns me with Jacare is his age. He's not a young guy anymore. But, I would take Jacare in a rematch with Romero. I would take him over Rockhold. There's just so many good fights in that division. So many good fights. So now that we got Michael Bisping out of the way, it kind of opens the division back.
And I think it's pretty important to be honest, I don't know who's going to win this fight, but I think just speaking on the middleweight division and the health of the division, I think it's important for Luke Rockhold to win this fight.
Yeah. Well,
and then I think it's important for Whittaker to get healthy,
right,
and for them to unify. Because what we see in the lightweight division, which we've talked ad nauseum about, the middleweight division's on very thin ice of becoming the lightweight division,
right,
as far as just chaos and disarray, and belts not having any meaning, right, at all, and we're just confused as fans in general. So in my opinion, it's important.
We're kind of heading that way with the 145 division as well. But now with Max Holloway out of his fight with Frankie Edgar, and now they're talking about what they're going to do for a replacement for that fight. Personally, the whole interim title, I think they should get rid of that. Get rid of that interim title. I don't care what division it is. Get rid of the interim title. Okay, you fight the champion, you beat the champion. To me, if you're the champion and you haven't defended that title in over a year, guess what? You get stripped. I don't care what even if it's an injury. Heaven forbid somebody gets hurt or something like that, but that's the name of the business. You know what I'm saying? If you're injured and you haven't defended that title in over a year, take the title away. Put it up for grabs. Put on a tournament or something. Like anything. But you can't have these interim titles and people just sitting out and all that kind of stuff. I'm not good with that.
I agree. I agree with pretty much all of that. It does drive me, and both of us apparently, and I know millions of people, really, it drives everybody crazy. Because you don't know who the real champ is. We don't know if we'll get to see that until eventually one person just gets stripped, and then they just promote the interim to world champ. You start losing credibility.
Yeah.
But tell me if you agree with this, though, on the kind of building off what I was saying. I think how important it is for Rockhold to win. Not only is it important for him to win just for the sanctity of the belts, because he was the champion before all the chaos started, but I think it's important because we've already seen Whittaker and Romero.
Well, and we've seen Whittaker, and I'm going to bite my own tongue here. We saw Whittaker beat up Jacare too, and I know I said I thought he was the best in the division. So to clarify on that, I genuinely think styles make matchups.
Yeah,
and
that's why this fight's so
I think
exciting.
Robert Whittaker is a very bad matchup for Jacare, but I also think Rockhold's got a good shot at beating Whittaker. I think that's a very good matchup as well.
I think that's a fun fight.
The wrestling of Romero, I think, could pose some problems for Whittaker too. Whittaker is a stud. There's no doubt about that. He deserves that title, and I'm a big fan of his as well. But the styles make the fights right now. I think the middleweight division right now, I think there's so much competition in that division between, say, maybe the top 5 guys. Man, on any given day, any of those guys could be the champion. And that's sad that Michael Bisping held that division up for so long, because look at all the amazing talent in that division. It drives me nuts.
Yeah, it's deep, and we saw it even last night, whether if we don't have time to talk about it really, but whether you agree with the decision or not, but you have a 39-year-old Lyoto Machida still winning fights as well.
And that's a topic for another day,
yeah.
But let me just say this, man. I thought that was a horrible decision.
Me too.
And then even if you go back to the Tim Means fight, I thought that was an incredibly horrible decision. If you look at Yamasaki with Valentina Shevchenko's fight, the judges, the referees, everybody last night were way off their game. That was horrible. So that's, like I said, that's for another day. But
yeah, it was interesting. But I just want to point out how deep it can be.
Absolutely.
With a former light heavyweight champ, putting it out there still at 185. It adds for just yet another exciting division, but hopefully they get it figured out, and hopefully everybody makes it to fight night for this interim title too, and we'll see where it goes from there. our best wishes to Mr. Whittaker. Hopefully he gets better soon, and we'll be talking about it forward.
Absolutely.
Next time you see us, we'll know an outcome. So that's going to do it for segment 2. Evan Herzog, The Fight Magazine, Albert Rosales, Grinders Fitness. Thanks for joining us here at IPTV.